Under the sea, under the sea. I've never seen The Little Mermaid, so I don't know the rest of this song. There is just, for those of you that don't know, I know I've mentioned it before, there are copious amounts of Disney films that I have not seen all the way through. So, yeah. Barry, you appear to have a mermaid on your head. You look ridiculous, buddy. You look absolutely ridiculous, but it's okay. In fact, I don't know what the evolutionary adaptation is of having a flat top head, but it's useful. He can stack things. Can you stack things on your head? Nope. Alright, so Barry's better than all of us. Okay, so anyway, today we will be talking about the pink-haired maiden Shirahoshi, the princess of Ryugu Kingdom, the daughter of Neptune and Otahime, and wait, okay, hold on, I have some questions right out of the gate here. Daughter of Neptune, this super giant burly merman, and Otahime, this frail, petite, about the size of a normal human mermaid. Okay, first question is, how do mermaids even... Yeah, I mean, that's a question I think humans have had for a couple of centuries, but beyond that, how did she... Because Shirahoshi's huge. She takes after her father, definitely. So, how did this... I don't... Ah! Actually, I have a pretty good explanation for it, really. In case you are confused, probably what happened is when she was actually born, she was the size of a regular baby, and then over the course of probably the next several days, she just grew exponentially until we get to this, and then eventually this. So, you know, Fishman and merfolk genetics. Go ahead, Oda. Give us all the details. Give us all the deets on how this works. All right, there's going to be an entire data book, just how this works, okay? All right, so, Shirahoshi, also known by another name, Poseidon, is one of the 3 ancient weapons that can literally destroy the world at any time if it were to be activated, okay? In the case with Poseidon, though, it's different from the others because we know Pluton is a world-destroying super battleship hidden somewhere in the world. I don't know, I'm sure someone will find it. But in the case when it comes with Shirahoshi, who's Poseidon, living being. So here's a question I have, just something that popped into my head while thinking of this video. Were there always mermaids that can control sea kings, like, well before the Void Century? Because from what we see right now in the story, especially from the last chapter, 967, the ancient weapons have a direct tie and connection to the Void Century, alright? So whether you want to say the Ancient Kingdom built the ancient weapons, or it was the Clan of D that created the ancient weapons, or Joy Boy was a member of the Clan of D that was also a member of the Ancient Kingdom that also had a hand in creating the ancient weapons, the ancient weapons have a major part to play with the Void Century, okay? So we could just assume that Pluton, in fact, I think it was confirmed that Pluton, the ship itself, was constructed during the Void Century. Okay, that's all well and good. But did something also happen during the Void Century to allow for the creation of Poseidon? There was a mermaid princess that lived over 800 years ago that had a connection with Joy Boy in some way. It was like Joy Boy's lover or wife or some such. That was the first one, apparently, that could control Sea Kings. So it stands to reason that something had to happen to her. If this isn't just a naturally occurring thing, then something had to happen to the first Poseidon for her to become the first Poseidon, right? The first one to be able to manipulate Sea Kings. In the chapter that I reviewed, there was a few mistranslations. One such mistranslation was that Poseidon was reborn every 100 years. Every century, a new mermaid princess was born with the abilities of Poseidon. I believe the actual translation specified that it wasn't like every century on the dot, it was every few hundred years. It was a lot more vague. It was like, yeah, every few hundred years, another Poseidon is born. So that could stand to reason either Shirahoshi right now is the second Poseidon in history, or there maybe could have been maybe 2 or 3 in between that little gap there, you know, like the Void Century was over 800 years ago, maybe 600 years ago, another one was born, and then it was dormant for like 300 years, and then 300 years ago another one was born that was dormant for another 3, and then Shirahoshi was born right now in the present. But that doesn't mean that there were exactly like 8 or 9, Poseidons since then, but I like to assume there was probably at least 1 or 2 in between that gap between the original and Shirahoshi right now. So yeah, either this is just a naturally occurring thing in nature, the Neptunians or the Sea Kings, depending on the translations, they've definitely been around for a very long time. We don't exactly know their lifespan or anything, but considering we know they're very intelligent, probably even more intelligent than humans from what we can gather, and they sort of have this secret underwater Sea King society. Sea Kings secretly control the world! Government! But no, I mean, they seem very intelligent, they seem very long-lived. I wouldn't be surprised if Oda, told us that the Sea Kings lived for millennia. They're even older than Zunisha. They're the oldest beings that have ever existed in the One Piece world. They've literally tens of thousands of years old, even if it was some ridiculous number like that. And they just kind of are these really intelligent sea monsters that live beneath the waves, and just kind of like, they're aware of everything that happens on the surface, but it's like a blip to them. They've lived so long, the lives of humans and even fishmen and merfolk and minks and all these other races. Even the lifespan of giants, which is like, over 300 years easy, is nothing but a blip on the radar to these giant leviathans, right? And they're just slowly keeping track of everything that's going on in the world, and they have their own culture, and they have their own way of passing down knowledge and all that stuff. I would be okay with that. And it just so happens that part of that culture, or part of the biology of all this, is that every now and then, like, a queen is born, like a queen bee, to use that example, is born to lead the Sea Kings. So in this case, every few hundred years, a queen is born that guides all of the Sea Kings in the world for a certain task or purpose. I think so far right now in the story, we can glean the purpose of the Noah and what it's supposed to be used for. If Fishman Island is supposed to be destroyed in this great day of reckoning that's been mentioned so many times in the story by now, by Madame Charlie, and it was mentioned again in the last chapter, this day of devastation, this moment where Fishman Island is completely obliterated, it is going to happen at some point. If that happens, then all of the citizens that live on Fishman Island, which are in the millions, I think it's something like 5 million people live on Fishman Island. There's a lot of fishmen and merfolk and everybody that live there in the Fishman district and everything. Plus all the sea beasts and everything that live there, they're gonna need some way to escape this devastation. Yeah, they can swim, but if, let's say, for example, I don't know if this could happen, but let's say the entire Red Line were to collapse on them or something, Fishman Island is in this bubble, surrounded by the Red Line. The Red Line is huge, alright? So it's like, here's the beginning of the Red Line on the ocean floor, and then you have to kind of go into this gap, into this trench, and a couple miles into the Red Line, when you're right directly underneath Marijois, there's Fishman Island in this bubble, and then to get out, you also have to sail, a couple of miles or kilometers out the other way. So, we don't really get to see the full scope of this, because the Red Line is just so ridiculously huge, and the hole that Fishman Island's in is also really big. It's not, claustrophobic down there, it's really big, but sure enough, if you were to sail directly above Fishman Island far enough, you would eventually hit a ceiling. It would just be really far up there. It'd probably be a couple of miles up until you finally hit this thing, right? So if this entire Red Line were to just the entire island would be devastated and destroyed, and probably a lot of people would die. So the Noah's existence makes sense. You get all of the members of Fishman Island onto the Noah, get the Sea Kings summoned by Shirahoshi's Poseidon powers to carry the Noah out of, the little cave and under the Red Line, and carry them on top of the ocean so they can be saved, like in the myth of Noah's Ark, Except it's not 2 of every animal in this instance, it's literally the entire population of Fishman Island, all of the sea beasts, the mermaids, the fishmen, everything you can get out of there, right? Maybe also some of the treasures of the Ryugu Palace, anything that they could salvage and they can escape, and then they can make a new life on the surface under the sun that they've all, dreamed of their entire lives, okay? So that, I think, makes sense for the existence of Noah, considering its biblical context of how it was used to save 2 of every animal plus Noah's family from this huge flood that devastated the entire planet, and Noah being used in this instance, okay? Well, this is going to require a few things. Shirahoshi needs to really learn how to use this power, okay? And it's something that it doesn't seem like she's been training in particularly. I'm not really sure how you could train in this power, considering there's really nobody else on Fishman Island that knows about this. Like, even Neptune, who is the current king, he was, I'm sure the other kings, before him, his dad and his grandfather, I'm sure, passed down these legends. Oh yes, Neptune, there's a legend, a joy boy. Apparently he was a boy that was very joyful. It's like, well, thanks, Dad. That's really helpful, okay? It's like, no, apparently, though, he had this really hot mermaid wife that could summon freaking sea kings. I'm like, oh, okay. What else? I'm like, I don't know. There's a giant block of the poneglyph in the sea forest. We can't read it, though. So Neptune knew a little bit about this, but he doesn't know where to go from this, right? Charlie is a fortune teller, right? So she can use divination to kind of see the future with pretty good accuracy. But we don't know exactly how good that is. Like, we know her premonitions pretty much have a 100% possibility of coming true. Like, when she sees something in her crystal ball, there's gonna be a lot of boob jokes in this, okay? I'm surprised it took me this long to mention that, alright? But anyway, okay. She looks in stuff in her crystal ball and it comes to fruition, right? Except, can she freely choose when to look in it? Like, she can, I guess she could, but could she be like, I want to know everything that will happen in the world in the next year? And then can she, like a slideshow, can she literally just go day by day and be like, tomorrow, next week, next month after that? Wait, hold up, go back. Day by day, day by day, day by day. Oh, okay. Next month, I'm going to eat a ham sandwich. And I'm gonna get sick from it. Alright, so I'll make sure to skip that. Like, can she choose that? Or is it really more of just, like, using my divination powers? Woo! Oh, Fishman Island's gonna be destroyed in an undetermined amount of time, in the future, is that it's accurate in the sense that, yeah, it's anything she sees is going to happen, but maybe she can't pinpoint, like, exactly, like, this is exactly the day, place, and time this is going to happen and occur. She maybe can't do that, but she could do that with Shirahoshi. When Shirahoshi was born, she knew exactly it was going to be 10 years. And it doesn't really matter, I guess, anymore at this point in the story in terms of Shirahoshi learning about her powers, because Madame Charlie broke her crystal ball. She's like, I'm done looking into the future. I saw the destruction of my entire homeland. I'm done with it for a while, right? So there's really nowhere she can go except for the Sea Kings themselves. The Sea Kings did speak to Shirahoshi at the end of the arc. Hey, Shirahoshi, we're here to listen to you. You are our queen, sort of. I'm paraphrasing here, but it was basically like they were being very kind to her. It's like, Shirahoshi, we've been waiting for you for such a long time now. We can't wait to, see what kind of person you're going to become and the stuff that you're going to do, right? So granted, it's only been a few months since then, since the end of the Fishman Island arc to where we are right now in the story. It hasn't been particularly long. It might not even be a few months, honestly. Just maybe a couple of weeks, maybe a month tops, ever since, between Fishman Island and the Reverie. I'm just going to keep calling it Reverie. But yeah, so the problem is, she went to Reverie, and we had that scene with Eam-sama, taking a knife and stabbing it right through her picture. So it's like, yeah, okay, that's not good. That pretty much confirms right there that Eam is aware of who she is, right? The legend passed down is it has to be a mermaid of a pure maiden heart that will receive this power of Poseidon. Okay, so it's not every mermaid princess that's born, but if Eam is aware of that legend, and maybe if he has, he's aware of maybe more active, Sea Kings in the area, then maybe he could put 2 to 2 together and he could be like, yeah, okay, it seems like the mermaid princess that currently exists at Fishman Island is currently the new Poseidon. And if that was the case, it would make sense why he would take a knife and run it through her picture, because he's like, I need her to be eliminated as quickly as possible. There was also the worry that because Shirahoshi was literally going into enemy territory, into Marijois, it's like, okay, that's not good. You're literally technically handing over one of the ancient weapons of the world over to the world government. You're literally bringing Shirahoshi to the world government, the Gorosei, and Eam's front door. It'd be like, here, not even into the front door, you're bringing them into your house. It'd be like, here you go, right? Now, thankfully, Shirahoshi managed to make it out in one piece there. She didn't get kidnapped or anything. Vivi, though, might not be so lucky. But she did make it in and out, but it definitely does seem that Eam is aware, and the question is, okay, would the world government want to use her powers for their own benefit, or do you think it would be easier to just eliminate her? I think when it came to, like, Pluton, that's a different story, because Pluton is not a living person. Although I'll get back to that in a second. Pluton, as we understand right now, is not a living person. It's a boat. So anybody that finds the boat can use the boat, right? It's not like you have to, win over the boat's emotions, like present the boat flowers and be like, oh, you are the finest damn boat I have ever seen in my life, Nothing like that. It's like you find the machine, you can use the machine, right? Shirahoshi, though, things are a little bit more complicated because you have to sway her to your side, and it might just be too many variables involved here. Part of the reason why a pure-hearted maiden receives the power is so she doesn't use it for evil deeds. It's not like Shirahoshi is evil or anything, right? So that's the reason, someone that's truly pure of heart. In Shirahoshi's case, that kind of equates out to being a massive crybaby, but, at least Shirahoshi, not with her will use this power in any evil way, right? Now, you could say against her will, if she was being forced to or coerced by the world government in some way, but maybe Eam and the Gorosei, they're just like, that is way too much of a risk involved in this. One wrong move, and the Sea Kings could literally wipe out everything the world government, holds dear. The Sea Kings probably wouldn't be able to destroy Marijois itself, unless you got all of the Sea Kings together to destroy the Red Line, which, from last chapter, we at least gleaned that it's very possible that all three ancient weapons are necessary to destroy the Red Line. Like, maybe you need Pluton to actually crack it with its mighty powerful cannons, and then the Sea Kings will, like, all ram it at the same time, and then Uranos does something else. Like, I don't know. I like to think Uranos is some sort of sky weapon, because Uranos is the god of the sky, so it's like, oh, Uranos comes down, Greek god of the sky, and takes away all the rubble, or does something with the rubble, or destroys it from orbit or something. I would love it if Uranos was just like a flying saucer and just, beep, 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 like lands right above Marijois and just Independence Days the crap out of it. Just Marijois is gone. All right, thanks to Uranos. And then you cut to Eneru hanging out in the cockpit, and Eneru's like, that was incredibly easy. I rule the world. That'll totally happen, right? But no, like, the Sea Kings probably won't be able to destroy Marijois since it's so high up, but the Sea Kings, all of them together, could easily demolish and wipe out most islands in the One Piece world. Unless there's some really, really strong customers hanging out on said islands. Because, like a Navy Vice Admiral could take out one moderately sized Sea King, no problem. Like, we saw that with Momonga. But you get an entire army of these things organized, and we have no idea how many of these things exist in the world in a total number, right? Like, it's entirely feasible, since most of these things live on the ocean floor, and some of them seem clearly stupider than others. Some, like those ones we saw at Fishman Island, the ones that live in the depths of the sea, like 10,000 meters down, furthest away from anybody on the seafloor, they seemed really intelligent. Then you get to the ones that are on the surface, like Lord of the Coast, and the one that did attack Momonga. Those ones seem more like wild beasts. So it might be that they're younger, like it might be like cats in the folklore or the lore of cats. The older they get, they develop more intelligence to the point when they reach their 9th life, they're even more intelligent than humans or whatever. Might be something like that. Like, yeah, you have a Sea King that only lives a couple dozen years, it's basically a wild beast. You get a Sea King that lives 10,000 years, it's like freaking Alakazam or something. It's like the brain of a supercomputer down there, right? And it makes sense that they would live on the sea floor away from the surface, so they don't get hunted or killed or punched out by a rubber kid, so they're like, we're just gonna stay down, or frozen by Aokiji, right? My point is, though, doesn't matter, who really fights against them. If you get an army of these things organized, and let's say there's millions of these things living on the ocean floor all over the world, you're completely surrounded. The One Piece world is mainly a water-filled planet, so you're done, right? But yeah, how exactly would Shirahoshi utilize this power, though, right? I mean, it has to play a role into the story, but other than just utilizing it, like, I could see, like, Fishman Island about to be destroyed, about the red line's about to collapse on it, and I could see Shirahoshi beginning to cry, because she's Shirahoshi, and she, like, prays, and she's just like, please help us! And then the Sea Kings arrive, and like, we will help you, Shirahoshi! And then everybody gets on the Noah, and then tows it away. I mean, that's pretty much, I think, going to happen, really, but is there anything else that they're gonna do with it? Like, right? Like, if Shirahoshi really wanted to, she could just be like, oh, mighty Sea Kings, please destroy every ship that has a world government insignia on it. They're intelligent, they could totally do that, but that's not how Shirahoshi works. That's not how she rolls, right? And with, you know, with great power comes great responsibility, but in this case, I'm sure even if Shirahoshi, I'm not even sure Shirahoshi herself understands the full weight of what she has at her hands, right? Like, she understands that, oh, the Sea Kings will listen to me when I command them. That's cool, but she doesn't truly understand that she could destroy the world if she wanted to, because she's too pure of heart for that. Right now, she only just really wants to see the Straw Hats again. She wants to walk in the forest, a real forest with Luffy and the other Straw Hats. So maybe she might be like, oh, mighty Sea Kings, take me to the surface and help me find the Straw Hat pirates so I can walk through a forest with them. Like, she could use it in that context and they would listen to her, right? But I still think she needs to commune with them a little bit. Kind of the same thing with what Momo did with Zunisha. You know, like, she just goes out to the into the far depths of the ocean and she starts communing with the Sea Kings and like, oh, Sea Kings, what should I do? And the Sea Kings will maybe tell her the story, like, oh, Shirahoshi, you're so pure of heart. Allow us to explain to you the story of your ancestor, the original Poseidon, how the mermaids began to receive this power to control us, how are you our queen, and how Joy Boy, what the relationship there was. And it's possible Shirahoshi, if she just learns to ask the Sea Kings, could learn all about the Void Century. Because, you know, beyond what I said earlier about maybe the Sea Kings are living tens of thousands of years, which that's just conjecture, they've at least lived, I think, back during the Void Century, back during that era. They lived through all of that. They probably saw what all happened with the Void Century, the other ancient weapons, what happened with Joy Boy and the Promise. They're probably at least aware of all that. And if Shirahoshi asks them, they will probably tell her. So, yeah, she could potentially learn the history about all of that. Maybe that's another reason why Eam was, like, stabbing her picture. It's like, maybe not necessarily just because she's a weapon, that's a big part of it, but because she's a weapon, she could also learn about the true history. She learns about the true history, she might tell her father or her brothers, and other people might find out about it, and she could probably tell the Straw Hats about it, and that's something else. That's like, maybe Eam views her like, yeah, she's a threat because she can summon Sea Kings, but she's also a threat because she can learn about the Void Century, and we gotta make sure to lock any of that shit down we can. Going back to Pluton, what I said earlier about maybe Pluton isn't a machine. What I meant by that is Pluton itself is a battleship, but wouldn't it be interesting if there was only one person that could control said battleship? It's not as easy as just finding the ship, pushing the on button, and being like, yeah, I got a world-destroying super weapon! No, what if, like, the fact that Shirahoshi is a living being that is an ancient weapon isn't the unusual part of this? What if all of the ancient weapons, in some way, shape, or form, require a living host in order to be utilized? Shirahoshi's case, she has to command the Sea Kings. In Pluton's case, what if there's a living being that's the only person that will command Pluton? Pluton will not function unless this particular person, saying person is up for debate, it could be another species, could be something else we've never even encountered in One Piece yet, has to be on board the ship in order to utilize the ship. If that person chooses not to activate Pluton or is separated from the vessel, it will no longer function for anyone. And then likewise for the same deal with Uranus. So think of it that way. I used to think that, oh, Pluton is a machine, Uranus is a machine, Shirahoshi's the weird one out for being a human. That might not be the case. I do think Pluton's a battleship, but there might be more to it than that. And also, that just seems like an obvious failsafe, right? Like, why would you... Okay, we have this world-destroying battleship. Yeah, let's just leave it somewhere for anyone to find and just push the on button. at the very least, there's gonna be a learning curve on how to utilize the damn thing, right? It's not gonna be as simple. Like, let's say the world government was able to find it. It wouldn't be as simple as just the world government found it and then they'd be destroying islands by the end of the day, alright? They would have to use, like, even Vegapunk and Frankie, some of the smartest characters, some of the smartest engineers in all of One Piece. Even if you got Iceberg, Tom, Frankie, and Vegapunk all working together to try to figure out Pluton, it would probably take a little while to figure out how exactly it operates. I used to always think, by the way, that Pluton would be like a modern-day battleship in our world, or like even in our future. Like, you know, this is a battleship that has futuristic laser cannons or something. Well, I guess lasers aren't super futuristic in One Piece, but still, there'd be a difficulty curve. And then Oranos, we have no idea what's up with that. So, yeah. But Shirahoshi, I mean, like, at first, I mean, like, she had a lot of build-up to her because, you know, she was built up in Thriller Bark. Like, she's the single most beautiful person ever. Even Boa Hancock pales, you know, before the Mermaid Princess's beauty. And then when we finally meet her, I mean, when it comes down to it, whenever Oda is talking about beautiful, it usually comes down to breast size, but, you know, like, she is pretty cute, and she's cute but huge, is how she is just described by a lot of people there. And of course, who could forget that famous scene that's probably going to live on in the annals of fiction when Luffy was just stumbling around in the dark and ended up jumping around on her boobs like they were giant marshmallow trampolines. Shakespeare, he accomplished a lot of stuff in literature, but I'll tell you what, right there, that moment in One Piece, that's going to be the thing. If I could choose one moment in fiction to be preserved for all time, like, let's say a giant meteor comes and wipes out all humans on the planet and all life on the planet except for anything like the size of bacterium. And then in a couple, you know, 100 million years or whatever, the bacteriums evolve to another species that's more intelligent than us. If I could choose one thing to succeed us and live in that new era, it would be the scene in One Piece where Luffy bounces around on Shirahoshi's boobs. No context whatsoever! A religion will be built around this! Okay. Well, anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know below how you think Shirahoshi is going to be included in the story from this point onward, how she's going to utilize her power, how she's going to learn about her power, and some information about the other ancient weapons, and how they'll play into the end of this story. Alright, thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Tekking, signing out.